Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're watching us from. And as you
Hello,
already
universe.
know, this is HomaBayUnplugged, voices from the heart of the lake. And as you always know, we always take it back to the roots from where it all started. The lake is calm, the lake is peaceful, the lake has a lot of activities, the hustle, the bustle, and everything. And as you know, in the heart of the lake is where the stories are. And this time we're taking it to the diaspora of the Eastern Africa and combining it all up to the world. And we have an amazing guest in this session, a legendary, I can't even define him in a way that encapsulates what he's all about, because he's been there, he's seen that, he has the t-shirt, he has all the tags, and he's done it all. So we're here to just have a sit down and just talking in wisdom. So we welcome Babaluku to this session, and you can just take it away.
Thank
There's
you,
no better
brother.
way to do this introduction, because if I were to read the list of the things that you've done, it will take an entire episode to just break it all down.
I know, but
Yeah.
we're grateful to be here. You know what I mean, welcome to Kampala.
Yeah, I'm
It's
so
always
grateful.
a great honor to have our relatives come and connect. I strongly believe that the biggest thing that the colonialists put against us is that they created the borders to ensure that we never meet.
Yes,
so they can continue to control the
Yeah.
narrative, you know?
Yeah.
But now that we cross the borders, we defy the odds,
Yeah.
you know? And I always like to tell young people that make sure you gather.
Yeah.
Because that's one weapon that was put against you that you shouldn't gather.
Yeah.
So in gathering, there comes our power.
Yeah.
And when we show up, we are able to redefine, redefine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm blessed to be here, having went to the diaspora at a very young age, having a chance to, not only be inspired by circumstances guiding me to return home, gave me quite a grace period of self-discovery and self-evolution to ensure that my return was meaningful. Yeah. I always try to tell people that I'm one of those people that when I came home, it really wasn't about building family. Yeah. It was about healing. Yeah. Honoring that I needed to leave the West to once again immerse myself in this beautiful land where I once had come from and regain the fabric of who I truly was. Yeah. Because, the years that I had spent in the diaspora, I totally had come, I guess in terms to knowing how I was altered and conditioned, to not even know how to move or let alone the tongue itself, language. The reason I'm heavy in indigenous hip hop is because it was part of my way of reclaiming the language. Oh. You know what I mean? So I know that there's many things I've had an opportunity to recollect as far as memory is concerned. You know what I mean? And I always tell young people today, if I wasn't honoring my ancestral narratives, I don't know if I would be well in my spirit today. Yeah. But I find a sense of calmness and peace because I know that where I stand, my ancestors are. Yeah. And so it gives me a stronger foundation to know that I'm always not alone. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Amazing. So going back to childhood, how was your upbringing and how was your childhood like?
I was, of course, like any young African child, I was raised in a family of diverse, histories, you know what I'm saying? My grandpa fought World War II, you know what I'm saying? So he was a soldier, an entrepreneur, and someone who greatly, of course, was into the field of business, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. On my mom's side, also, there's another story, her dad being one of the first people who had a bike shop in the city back in the days, and they made their wealth that way. But let alone, I think, I also was able to see that, my mom and dad coming from different backgrounds and coming together to have their own family, they faced a lot of challenges. So we were able to experience a level of poverty of what happens when you leave your home to start a family. And we were children of not even middle class, you know what I'm saying? Our parents were all working up, variations of creating, their stories, you know what I mean? And we became a part of those stories. And so, but let alone, my father and mother transformed to charismatic Christianity. And in that, my father started to be a preacher. And so I became a preacher's son. And most of my life I've been known as a preacher's son. You know, and that also came with a lot of lessons. You know, and so over time, that's where I've understood the power of spirit.
Of spirituality.
And what it means to be in life and understanding spirituality. You know, away from religion. You know, so some of the things I've been able to discover upon my return on the continent have highly liberated me, because I feel like now I regain memory and move in my authentic story all the time. Especially when I use my indigenous language.
To connect and communicate. And then how is it growing up in the like overseas, and how was the experience like growing up as a Black kid?
I mean, a lot of young Black people who left the continent at ages of 10, 11, 12 will relate to what I'm saying. It's really true when they say you're an alien. You know what I'm saying? Like when you fill in those documents and they say the alien. What's your alien?
Hey, it feels so like you feel so segregated and alienated, you know, everything in life.
So growing up in the West, it's a whole nother set of layering to life. A lot of people see the glamour, the glitter, the cars, the Hollywood. But try to go and live there. You will really find out the nature of the people you're living among. Like to wake up every day and you don't know if you'll make it home safe as a young Black man. I don't think you want to wake up that way. I don't even think about my security when I wake up here more often. But over there, the minute I hit the street, the body's in alert mode. You know what I'm saying? And so I have to say that away from that, also just so being isolated, because as a child of an immigrant, you're at the lowest of the lowest of the system. You know what I mean? So growing up at the lowest of the lowest in the diaspora, and then coming home, you know, and realizing and recognizing that there's wealth and infinite life here. One has to accept that coming back to the continent is a necessity for every child who was taken away young here. To come and feel the greatness of this land. And I think over the past years, through, you know, the honor and service field that I'm in, I've learned so much, and thanks to all the youth. You know, that's why my organization is Bavubuka Foundation, the Youth Foundation. It's the young people in the continent that inspired me to return home. Not only inspired me, they also allowed me, through my passion of service and collaboration with them, to meet some of my highest memorable times. Like when I first spoke at the United States Institute of Peace, it was because I was serving young people, and that the spirit and the energy in which I was serving was authentic and genuine, and it was through the medium of hip hop. And then I was availed that call to be able to render my findings on how researchers impact the continent. You know, and so all of that stuff allows you to see yourself in a bigger frame and in a bigger picture, and strengthen your cause and what you stand for. Because after starting to do things like United States Institute of Peace, the Woodrow Wilson Center of Scholars, Howard University, we started to understand that there was much more bigger to hip hop than just being on the mic. You know, and so that gave me a footstone to really focus on creating the field of indigenous hip hop practitioners. Something I always say, as far as the East African sphere or the continent itself, I'm one of the pioneers of that narrative. Because I had never walked to any city and I found a rapper or an MC call themselves an indigenous hip hop practitioner.
Amazing. That's really insightful. And so you're bringing, and also the siblings. How was it, like the relationship between the siblings, your neighborhood, and all that? And how was schooling like?
I always say I was a community child first. So adaptation was never a challenge, because my father having ran a ministry, I was always in a lot of high frequency energy
with people.
With people. So there was never a moment of physical isolation, but there will be that spiritual isolation, because as much as you are in a high population of people, there's always this secluded self that you are. You know, that sometimes also did not know what to speak or what to say, but just had to figure it out within their own way. You know, so but our parents were ministers and they were missionaries, so they traveled a lot. And so we grew up with a lot of different people.
Okay, so you're always moving from place to place with your parents.
That was the case. They moved much more than we moved, but at the end of the day, we were always a moving family. If it's not, our parents doing crusades all over, it's choosing to uproot us from here and take us to Canada, for greener pastures and for safety.
Amazing. And so there was also community of let's say like the Ugandans or Africans that you were.
Yeah, but I always say that going to the diaspora, when you leave your community at home, I've never been a big fan of finding my community in the diaspora. So I don't look for Ugandans. I look for my African people. The minute I look for Ugandans, I'm sparking issues and problems that are casted on people's foreheads, because the idea is that if a lot of people with us in the UK or Canada and you've been able to travel there, there's this narrative around like people from a specific group, from a specific location tend to fight, to have the crabs in a bucket element. You know what I'm saying? So they're not supportive, they're not elevating, they're not genuine in your welcomeness, right? They recognize you joining a struggle, but they don't want to help you within understanding that struggle. They want to look back and laugh at you and wait for your moment to join their bucket. You know what I'm saying? So I really never looked out for the Ugandan communities abroad. Because I realized I was took from the continent to have a different experience, not to find a Ugandan experience within America or Ugandan experience within the UK or anywhere. So if you choose to migrate, go and immerse yourself in a new environment and learn those systems. But you find that a lot of people who galvanize themselves around their own little societies, what tends out to happen is that they're left backwards within the same frame of advancement. So I was always a kid who was willing to take risks and move with us, the Japanese community, the Jewish community. I was always looking to connect with other people because I'm like, we're out here to experience. So I wasn't limiting my experience by filling out home abroad.
Amazing. And how did that shape your worldview? Well then.
It made me understand that humanity is at the core of everything I do. Like before I see my color, I see me as human, which allows me to see everyone as human. So in lies the idea that I don't have to really fight this race war anymore if I acknowledge that my next kin, you know what I'm saying, is my brethren, is my sister, you know what I mean? I stand for humanity in everything I do and dignity for all.
Amazing. And in this time while growing up, were you always into art?
Art has always been part of what my energy is since I was a child. And I know, like, I also started one in a dance, one in a DJ. How I ended up becoming an MC, I can't explain, but I can say that some things just stick. So when I started to travel a lot and I couldn't get equipment, so the pen and the pad were closer. So that gave me a more medium to express myself within my own experiences. I knew I could write. And then I played a little bit of keys. So I'd always come up with little mini songs, you know what I mean? And then put myself in a trance of wanting to really tell a story, and that's what led me to literally actually telling some of the stories that have inspired the young people of the land.
Amazing. And then at this time, your art was it strictly just restricted to church, or there were like performances or concerts or places that you used to perform? How was it? How was the process like?
Church plays a big role in growing and nurturing talent. And I'm part of that talent that came from church. You know what I'm saying? My Sunday school teachings, my first, looking up key players, and I'm like, I want to play keys. My sitting on the drums and learning how to, hit the snare and the cymbals. It's like all of that came from the church experience. So church gives you a periphery of things and energies that you can move through to discover what you really want to do. You know what I'm saying? And singing and MCing, became the things that I really enjoy the most. And fortunately, by the time I was doing them, I chose not to literally restrict myself to church. I just wanted to make music that speaks, music that elevates, music that encourages, so I did not tag myself as a gospel artist or a secular artist. I was just a creative in expression.
Amazing. At this moment, like, were also your parents supportive of your journey of what you're doing? How was their reception like?
Parents always just come along at some point.
Yeah.
There's always that defiance of them not wanting you to be in your expressive element.
Yeah.
Because maybe you are representing a mystified force or energy they don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's just, it takes them a little bit of time. It's what I always tell young people.
Yeah.
You know, when your parent is not keen to what you are aspiring to achieve or do, it's not like create a war or internalize the self-conflict. You know, but find it within you to have the lenience to understand that you will be understanding things differently for a time being until you mature and nurture yourself into a responsible adult with that same thing that you love and you are doing for them to come around and respect it, because you start to achieve. You start to show them that it's something meaningful. They start to see you being celebrated and clapped for, you know, for the same thing they used to scold you for. You know what I mean? So I think that sometimes we have to live through those phases knowing that they will follow along when they see you stand strong and committed to that which you mean and intend to do here.
Amazing. And were there, like, the journey through, let's say, like Canada and also the States and all that, like, were there like groups that you had during that time, and also like just practicing, because you're just getting into like the birthing of like your hip journey and all of this?
So I had friends growing up that were MCs, that were beat makers, producers, you know, and we didn't form groups necessarily, but we had sessions. And we would show up, and sometimes when they had talent shows, we would go and play at talent shows. And then later on, when my father deceased, which was in 1995, I came back to Uganda, and that was my first time to literally on this ground be a part of a hip hop group. You know, known as the Bataka Squad, or the Bataka Underground. You know what I mean? And I'm just blessed that from jump we understood that our message was for the people, and that we had to represent a voice that stood for something. So when you come to Uganda and you look at what our profile is, it's always been a group that represented and spoke consciously around the environmental issues that were going on, and choosing to create solutions and also hold the banner for advocating for our people.
Amazing, amazing. Also, to take it back a bit, and then before we jump into the squad, while you are still in Canada, did you always have like an inclining to just always come back home and to always do stuff, or you just
I think that there was a memory. First, when I left for Canada at 12, I always had a living memory of my pathways that I used to take to school. So every time the bus picked us up to take us to school or whatever, I just remembered my pathways that I used to walk in to get to school. You know, fast forward when my father deceased and I came back for the funeral in 1995, I was able to meet young adults at that time who loved to rap, who loved to dance. You know, there was an emerging young generation that was coming up. And within that space, man, I had a beautiful time here. Like, I came for my father's funeral, but I made so many great friends who later became group members, who are later supported, who are later like supported me too. You know what I mean? So there's a synergy in the years of the time span, whereby learning was the curve continuously, but to acknowledge the transitions at times, leaving Uganda, going to Canada, then coming back for my father's funeral, is always what I credit to my new memory of Africa. Is when my dad died, I had a chance to come and actually look as a youth on what, you know, on really having a bigger memory reclaimed. And from that point, I think I would leave Uganda, but it took me 12 years to come back.
Amazing. So by that time when you guys left, your dad was living in Uganda?
No, my dad was in America. He came back here for his mission. And during his crusades, that's when he actually passed on. So he actually passed on before we saw him. I see.
So you guys went to Canada, he went to States?
He also came to Canada to visit us. Like I say, he was a missionary. But before he would come to visit us, the final visit, he canceled it and then decided to come home. And we just never saw him again after that. Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of now getting the connection.
Yeah.
So now you're like from Canada, you come back
for the funeral.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I met, all the people who later will become members with Bataka Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I formulated the first hip hop group that I was a part of.
Yeah. So you just came. What drew you here that you didn't want to go back after coming for the funeral?
When my father transitioned, it took me like 5 years to grieve. So much happened within a 5-year span.
While you're still here?
I spent here 1 year.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I started traveling at a young age.
Yeah.
So I was in the streets a lot. I was in many countries, just surviving and living and trying to find my way because I was not there mentally.
How was that? Like, where are you getting the money? How are you surviving? How was it?
My mother, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And also, for me, like, I was literally an entrepreneur at an early age because even when I stayed here for a full year, when my mother left me in Uganda, whenever she sent me money, I would utilize that to do talent shows. So I'd reinvest my pocket money into going to a school to do a show. Yeah. And sometimes we would make money, sometimes we just, made square, but it was still fun because we enjoyed doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then out to different countries, how was it? Like, you went to, like, how many countries?
Man, I was floating. I spent years floating, you know what I'm saying? And it was not easy. Being black and being in places where black people are not welcome, it's a challenge, right? You get to see the world from a different lens when you start experiencing really what our people encounter, in all of these different places that are prejudiced. Yeah.
And then now, going to these different continents, like, what is the drive? Like, what is the motivation factor? What are you trying to see?
Music. Yeah, music always drove me. That's why it's my shield. Yeah. I continue to use the sound vibration as my healing point, but also as my connection point. Yeah. Because it guided me through a lot of trauma spaces. Yeah. It sustained and it kept my memory, in the right frame, to be able to return home and make it safe, still singing my song. Yeah. And I always tell people that my song is not necessarily a hit song on your radio. Yeah. My real song is my community. I get to see them. I get to be with them. Yeah. I get to build with them. I get to participate in nation building. I get to be with a young generation. Yeah. That's a song alone in itself. Yeah. Not too many people get that chance, and I don't take it lightly. I'm glad that I was given the opportunity to sing my song, which is build my community.
Amazing. Yeah. And in all these places, did you get to produce? Did you get to collaborate?
I worked in so many studios, music that I never got. I got to collaborate. I got many kind hearts, producers who would put me on. Yeah. I got to really be a part of interesting spaces. And I have to say that I learned a lot, and which gave me the confidence in the ladder to know how to move around creatives. Yeah. Yeah, because now whether you're a producer, a writer, or whatever, like the way I move and navigate to collaborate with you is very, very honorable due to my experiences that I went through.
Amazing. So, and then at these moments, like there was music that came out, the collaborations, there were things. So how was it? How do you connect to now moving from these different places? And then did you now go back to Canada or just came straight home?
No, I went back to Canada. I went back to Canada, and then when I went back to Canada, I think I used to communicate with my friends that I left here. Yeah. And we had this dream of being able to take our voices on a global platform. Yeah. So the year is 1995 when this dream came to life. Yeah. Where I was returning for the first time as a young adult now at 21. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to now participate in putting my friends on. Like I came with fashion. I came with hip hop. I came with unapologetic swag. Yeah. I was taking over television and just showing people light years of advancement and things I was doing. I was a creative disturbance in a force. You know what I'm saying, of what you call urban lifestyle. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I was the long T-Rock and Timberland boots, everything, you know what I mean? Yeah. So we inspire generations to, learn to be bold, you know what I'm saying? And for me, I always look back and I say, a lot of the young people and everything they're doing now, we done did it before.
Yeah.
If we pull out the images, they'll be laughing, saying,
Yeah,
what era was
we actually need to see the achievement and see how the journey was.
You know?
Yeah.
But man, like, I have to say that returning, in 2005 was actually the return. I had said 1995. No, it's 2005.
Yeah.
After leaving in 1996, 97, I returned here in 2005. And 2005 was the official of Take the Mission Global, Take the Vision Global. You know.
And then at this time, had you met with the Bataka Squad? Or? Yeah.
So the Bataka Squad we had formulated around 1995. Which was during my father's death when I came for the funeral.
Yeah.
When I stayed around as a preacher's kid, I used to have a house with PS systems, so all the kids used to come and record at my place.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of them got to meet me.
Yeah.
And from those we built friends, and then we formulated a group later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that's when you came back to 2015.
2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then at this time, were there like influences? And let's take it back also like a bit. Before 95 were influences in terms of music in 95, and then now when you came back.
Yeah, I mean, hip hop was in its phases of infiltrating everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everywhere you went, whether you were in Germany or Denmark or Sweden, you know, you saw people rapping in local dialects, right? And so there was this energy of, you can own your own identity and take it to the world, you know?
Yeah.
So I think for me, there was a great opportunity in seeing all of that globally. So it really emphasized on a message that we had in 1996 to really start rapping in our local dialects.
Yeah.
Because we really started doing it in 1996, but we were not confident enough, like our brothers in Tanzania.
Yeah.
I always tell the people that we were actually inspired by a trip to Tanzania to really start rapping in our local dialects.
I see. And the other time, were there like guys singing hip hop in Uganda? Like, were there
all the Ugandan hip hoppers were English rappers. So to rap in your native dialect is ladder because everyone shunned down on it. No airwaves wanted to play you. When you made that music, even your own peers told you no one will listen to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so we had to fight upstream to really be relevant. We knew all the great producers in the country, but every time we went in the studios to rap, they would put us down.
Yeah.
You know, trying to tell us how it's not going to work and there's no opportunity for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So here we are now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That many years later, we have a generation that's carrying our flag forward, rapping in indigenous dialects. Amazing. So how powerful is that?
It's really powerful. It's really powerful. So I'm trying to let's say get through the squad. So you guys came in 95. You're how many guys? And then now when you came back to 2005.
Yeah, in 95 we're probably around 10.
Yeah.
If we were to break down everyone who was participating.
Yeah.
And then you come around 2005, it was literally 3 of us. So me and one of my other boys, Saba, who I stayed in touch with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then we also recruited a female representation and we reformulated as Bataka Squad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With a global mission. This time around, we're not thinking Kampala, but we're thinking the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And just so happens to have had the opportunity to achieve that in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Because after 2005, 2006, we're already in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated 22 years.
22 years.
We just celebrated 22 years of empowering indigenous hip-hop voices in Uganda.
Yeah.
And that's through the big global indigenous hip-hop gathering, which kicked off with the, Uganda Hip-Hop Summit.
Yeah.
And that alone, dives us into Bavubuka Foundation, because Bavubuka Foundation, Bavubuka means youth in Luganda. Bavubuka Foundation believed in using music, that through using music, we can transform lives and unify diverse communities.
Yeah.
And that's been our mandate, to provide spaces where unity is, where diversity is, and where creativity is, so we can infuse in creating a colorful community for young people to grow up in.
Yeah.
And so I strongly believe that vision and that mission is what gave me the opportunity and the ideas to immerse myself once again in my culture as a contributor, but also as a key holder, to use my pathways and my knowledge and my experience to open up doors for others. And so over time, Bavubuka has been known to breed leaders, vibrant, authentic, creative, expressive minds, unorthodox, and unapologetic because they love who they are and they are able to discover on their quest what they want to do or contribute as their purpose in life. Yeah.
What's the future of hip hop in Uganda?
The future of hip hop, Uganda and beyond, you know what I'm saying? Is to hold a banner for life in itself, to remind people of culture roots, to remind people of the source, to tell us, to take us back into our stories while giving us the opportunity to design new futures. You know what I'm saying? To push our spirits to evoke that ancestral energy of resilience and advocacy, to speak in existence that which, we can rebuild now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you talk about the evolution taking the continent, youth will participate this time around, but the foundation is going to be in story. And whether you're a poet, whether you're an MC, the hip hop culture provides, a clear pathways to tap in and be able to assert yourself to make your contribution. So I feel like the future of hip hop is liberation. The future of hip hop is transcendent. The future of hip hop is healing. The future of hip hop is visions and ideas that are going to resuscitate humanity. You know what I'm saying? To bring us back together, to honor each other, to respect and loyally engage and trade with one another, holding each other's value up through dignified ways of operating.
Yeah, amazing. And then as you dive into that, what does spirituality mean to you? What is spirituality to you?
I mean, spirituality to me is the innate, intrinsic understanding of what moves within you to express and experience what in turn allows you to manifest your creations. You know what I'm saying? You're constantly in inner conversations that are evoking some form of energy, some form of thought, some form of truth, that you want to outlet as in a representation of your own existence. So uniquely as you yourself as an individual, you know what I mean? You are a spirit moving. Before your physicality. You know what I'm saying? And so when you're able to acknowledge the spirit that moves within you to create, to build, to connect, you're able to understand that you are indeed, a spiritual being having this human experience here, right? So I like to always say I'm constantly physically tested, but I also know that I'm spiritually protected. So I get to lean in the spirit, when the world, seems hard and things are not moving accordingly. I always say, you know what? I think I'm not in alignment. So then I remember the assignment, which is to realign and tap back into spirit.
That's dope. And then you keep talking about being part of a collective, always doing things communally or collectively and not doing things as an individual. Like, how is this important to you?
From whence we started, we must return. Communities that established, the energies in which we were raised worked as a collective. So why are we talking about individualism? Who brought individualism to our psyche? When we came from an ecosystem where we knew the reliance of our responsibility to each other and that we honored that. I grew up in that sphere, so you cannot uproot me in understanding the power of collective consciousness. When I remember my childhood in a village and how our grandparents, our parents, had so much respect and reverence for the entire community they lived in, I'm reminded that that level of peace is what we're missing today. That level of love and dignity is what we're missing today. So if we're going to, create mediums to remind us what once was, well, then there's no other platforms than hip hop to allow us to bring that back. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I'm a proud indigenous hip hop practitioner, because I believe it avails me the tools to be able to guide and lead my generation back to the source.
Legacy.
Legacy, key, fundamental, important. Young people, printed on the shirt and wear it every day. Because you must be aware that you are not put here just to immense riches and brag about what you've created and get us to clap for you. We are living because others lived. So how do we break the cycle when that's the truth and reality? So we get to acknowledge that now we are living because others will live. And so in our time spent here, it's not about how I built a house, how I drive a car, what business I became wealthy in. It's about what values have I created room for the next generation to have continuity of my conversation. Something that many of our African leaders have not established. And so we are short of understanding the power of legacy. I had a chance of performing at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And while I was performing on our stage in its beautiful and pristineness of how it's presented, I recollected that Kennedy died years ago. But because of the shared value of thinking about a young man who one day will come from Makindye and end up on that stage, he left a mark in a community so they could clap for me. So who's doing that for me in my community? No one. And that's why in this day and time, as Bavubuka Foundation, we strongly believe in access. Shout out to Sustainable Access Foundation, our partners. We strongly believe in a message of ensuring that when our young people are taught about access, they will now be able to participate and value themselves more, knowing that they are the new builders of the communities and the things that they want to establish in the community. So we have to now empower that narrative of legacy so that they could tie themselves into knowing that they're accountable. They're the ones that we've been waiting for. They're the ones the ancestors dreamt of. You know what I'm saying? That will fulfill the mandate. You know what I'm saying? And so let us encourage our young people to talk legacy so that they could be free and know that, you can't take it all with you into the ground, but you could leave a resounding stepping stone for another 5-year-old to rise again, just like you rose.
Amazing. What legacy do you want to leave here?
My legacy is in space. My legacy is in dignity. My legacy is in honor. And I think I'm blessed to live long enough to participate in it, because I'm already living in my legacy at this point. Everything I do and everything I touch in this era is legacy design. Moyo, the spirit, the return of our street apparel, Moyo, it's designed around legacy powering. So we bought land for the community, and now we're going to start building on that community from this gear. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you get your Moyo, tap and t-shirt line, because we're going to make sure we power legacies for our young people to be celebrated, remembered, and given places to heal and center themselves around the source, and also be able to honor our cultures again, so that we could identify the contributions that we are making directly to our people.
Amazing. You'll give us a parting shot, and then also, as you wrap it up, also we talk to us about the future of the foundation. The future of Bavubuka Foundation is really tied to what we call the Muga Legacy Builders Village. We have a vision to adopt an entire village and do what we call neighborhood upscaling. Neighborhood upscaling is to ensure that our young children will grow up with libraries. Our young children will grow up with IT labs. Our young children will grow up with theaters. Our young people will grow up with, soccer pitches and basketball courts. Our young children will grow up with farming grounds to keep them rooted on the land. So literally neighborhood upscaling is to ensure that a young child can imagine a future that's dignified, and they'll remember that people like us lived to ensure that they get access, and that's what we work for today. So the future for Bavubuka Foundation is to put in stone a legacy gift
that really represents why we were living. And we thank everyone who's partnered with us so far to continue pushing the idea of achieving the dream that we want to see for our people, to not only, talk about this epitome stories, but to also tap into the idea of being triumphant in championing, this liberation that we talk about when we talk about a liberated continent.
Amazing. Our parting shot.
I mean, my relatives, my brothers, my sisters, everywhere you are around the world, we honor you, we respect you, we value you. I thank you for being a great contributor. And I would just like to anchor you with this. Always remember to remember so you could be remembered. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know how you want to exit the planet, but I say that every day when I talk to a human being, I plant a seed of memory that ties us to the infinite, freedom that we all are on a quest for. We all on a quest for some freedom. We can't even define what freedom is for some of us. But I want freedom. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to leave you with this one. The real freedom that you're looking for is within. And so find peace and let it be that the ancestors will always remember that you did your work while you're here, and they'll clap for you instead of me clapping for you. You know what I'm saying? For fulfilling your mandate. So stay in line with your assignment and get out there and win. You know what I'm saying? Go and do something great. You know what I'm saying? We were all put here, to do something great. So get out there and do something great. You know what I'm saying? Challenge yourself. I have 2 scales on which I rate that. You know what I'm saying? I always say, if it's not making history, why be a part of it? If it's not mind-blowing, why do it? So at the end of the day, use those 2 minutes to really know what you're participating in. Am I making history? Am I blowing some minds? And get out there and do it unapologetically. You know what I'm saying? We're making history right now. We're about to blow your mind at the same time.
Ain't no better way to end this episode.
Move by purpose and design.
Nuggets upon nuggets upon nuggets. And surely Babaluku didn't disappoint. I told you guys,
Salute,
this
warrior.
Is what you always hear from HomaBayUnplugged, voices from the heart of the lake. And we've had the honor and privilege to hear from the lake itself.
Hold up. And don't forget, every year we host a Return to the Source gathering. So if you're a relative out there and you want to come and join us in December every year, we're able to gather relatives from across to reconvene at the source of the Nile in honor of the spiritual ritual.
Voices from the heart of the lake, we gotta go back to the Nile.
There you go. Welcome back to the source. Let us reconnect. You know what I'm saying? Marcus Garvey said repatriation is a must. They did not listen. And this era and time, we are a return of Marcus Garvey's voice, and we say reconnection is a must. So make sure we connect.
Peace. We are out at HomaBayUnplugged, voices from the heart of the lake, and you're going back to the source of the Nile to reconnect. Peace and love. Tell a friend to like, post, share, subscribe. Peace.